you just kind of want to make enough money to enjoy the weekend. And one of my best months ever, I made like 80 grand and I was in Miami on vacation for 2 weeks. I would have just kept putting that money into businesses. But again, I think it was just bad guidance. If I would have known, yeah, I would have left. I'd never want to be at the bottom again. So that keeps me motivated. I think there are going to be people who are not going to be able to buy homes. It's going to be that simple.
Welcome to Keep Hustling, where we are going past the why to get to the how. I'm your host, the always hustling Aaron Gordon, aka NY Risk Advisor, aka Mr. Keep Hustling. In this podcast, we will be diving deep into the professional and personal successes of our guests to find out how they hustled through the most difficult times in their life and their development to achieve the success they've gotten to today. So buckle up for what hopes to be an amazing ride. And of course, now and always, keep hustling. Welcome to Keep Hustling with my guest, Frank Sirocco. Frank, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Frank, we're going to jump right in. You had an interesting hustle that happened just a few minutes ago, and I'm going to put you on the spot on that. You are the first guest in the history of the KHP to narrowly escape a stopped elevator or getting stuck in an elevator to appear on the podcast. So we are grateful to you for escaping that elevator and joining us here today.
Well, you know what? I'm grateful that I was able to channel all my inner Bruce Willis, Die Hard, get out of the elevator type of thing. I was figuring out, am I going on top? Am I going? But yeah, I was
You
running
weren't
up.
going to Matrix it down? You were going
that?
Bruce Willis? You weren't going Keanu Reeves in the Matrix?
I was going to go Bruce Willis. I remember that scene where he
of course.
straps the guy to the chair with the dynamite and
Sure.
throws out the roof and sends it down. But yeah.
Relax, everyone. Just so you know, it was like a 3-story office building and he was on the second floor. So just chill out, okay?
I was on the first floor, actually. So there is a basement. I might have fell about 10 feet, but yeah, I was like, damn, I'm gonna miss this podcast because I'm in an elevator.
Well, we're glad you made it. So take us back, Frank. You know,
Sure.
I follow your journey. We got to meet through a mutual friend, and I got to know where that drive comes from. The drive to do what you're doing, build the team, build a future, do things the right way. Take us back. What's the origins of your hustle and drive?
Yeah, so I mean, things happen throughout life, right? I've never had anything that was over the top or a real life changing experience. But you get into business in your 20s or something, out of school, and you just kind of want to make enough money to enjoy the weekend and maybe drive a decent car and move out eventually and everything. But I think one of the things that happened to me, which really changed my drive and my energy and my focus, was I got into the mortgage business in the early 2000s, and I was killing it. I mean, killing it. It was the easiest money you could ever make. This is, subprime wholesale mortgages before the crash. It was just insane. I mean, I think, one of my best months ever, I made like 80 grand and I was in Miami on vacation for 2 weeks. So it was like, it was just so easy. And the bottom came falling out, as, a lot of people know, real estate and mortgage crisis in the mid 2000s. And, you go from up here to down here, and it's tough. You're managing money and really trying to figure out what you're going to spend money on and what you should and what you shouldn't, and you're budgeting, and it's very different when you have success and then all of a sudden nothing. So, I think that really gave me a different mindset to kind of do things and put your head down and grind and just keep going, because you can't take it for granted. And if you just kind of if you just go and you don't plan and you don't strategize and you don't put in that extra work, it's going to come back to bite you in the ass, man.
So I'm glad you went there, because I have a bunch of questions about that and being in the business in that time.
Sure.
The first is, what was it like when you realized that? Did you realize at the time before how easy it was, or did you assume that was just the business that you chose? You had the knack. Some months were going to be good. Some months weren't going to be as good, but they were still going to be good. Some months were going to be great. Some months were down here, and then like the bottom just obviously came crashing down, or
Mhm.
did you realize like it can't be legit? Meaning, what I mean to say is like,
Yeah.
as you say, it was the easiest money, but did you realize it was easy money? The reason why I ask that is, if you did realize it was too easy, maybe you would have been planning for the bottom.
Yeah.
Or if you thought that, hey, this is going to be it for the next 30 years of my career, what then happens on that day or that week, or when you look back at that first real down month? What's the mindset there?
Yeah.
How do you keep going?
So I mean, you're talking things that are like ringing bells, to me, and rewinding, 15, 16 years, and kind of having these conversations. I think the problem was that myself and other people that I was around thought that it was, I don't want to say never going to end, because we did all say, hey, this is going to change. This is easy. But I don't think anybody thought it was going to evaporate. And that's the big thing, right? So you're sitting in this position going, okay, I'm making great money. This is easy. Mortgage business is always going to be around. It's all cyclical. It's up and down. And even in the bad times, this specific, position, I was doing wholesaling and subprime mortgages. I was like, all right, well, even if it comes down 50%, it's still pretty good living, right? But
Right,
what
I
really,
may not be having that kind of a vacation, but I'll be having a vacation. I
yeah,
may not get a new car every year, but I'll have
yeah.
the car.
So it was, I think that the old timers that were in the business they were prepared. And I think the younger generation was kind of like, man, screw you. You don't know what you're talking about, old timer, And like, I remember my dad saying, you know, you ain't supposed to be making this much money, you know?
But what happens when you realize that? What happens when you realize, because it wasn't, you weren't doing something crazy. You weren't gambling in Vegas.
No,
It's a legit business. It's a
legit
legit
business.
income. And then you realize, like, hey, this may or may not be my long-term career, but
Yeah.
it's definitely not going to be what it was yesterday or
Yeah.
last week. So how do you then, it's almost like a new career, right?
Completely new career. What I do now, still in the mortgage business, is completely different. I had to completely rebuild myself. And I had to go from.
So what happens when you realize that? When you realize that you have to rebuild yourself? I want to go to that moment. Then I want to hear how you did it. But I just want to know, like, that moment
Dude,
when you say, like, it's over.
you pull your pants up, and pull your big boy pants up and strap your boots, and go. And then you realize really quickly, how easy it was. And you learn. I mean, I tell you right now, if I could rewind the clock, I wouldn't be working. I would have just took all that easy money, and I would have put it into something that would create more money for me long term. I'm not talking about investing. I mean, yeah, everybody could say, "Oh, I should have bought Bitcoin." Yeah, I get it. But like, I would have just kept putting that money into businesses instead of spending money for the couple years, 4 or 5
But
year
you thought
run
it
that
was going
we
to
had.
keep coming in.
Thought it was going to keep coming in. If you know the faucet's going to turn off,
You could
you
prep,
pour it.
right? You
You
could
pour
collect
it, man.
water.
You're like, yeah, you get ready for hibernation like the squirrels. You know it's coming to an end, so you put all your nuts, somewhere, keep them safe. But it wasn't like that, and it was abrupt. It was pretty abrupt. I mean, in a span of like, I don't know, maybe a year, the business went from vibrant and everybody flourishing to like scrambling and saying, "What am I going to do?" And using all their savings and cashing out retirements and all sorts of stuff. It was hard, and I didn't. A lot of people didn't pivot fast enough, right? At that point in time, I could have pivoted, but again, I think it was just bad guidance. If I would have known, yeah, I would have left.
So you didn't pivot fast enough,
Sure,
and then you were forced to pivot, I assume. Then it
100.
was right. Then it was a pivot.
It was a big pivot.
What was that like?
It's weird when you are making money and doing something that you're into and you like, and you have this whole energy in this business, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, well, what am I really qualified to do? Right. And I got out of mortgages. I completely got out of mortgages. Went into private equity, went into insurance, did the financial advisor thing. It's
Was that because you felt burned by the industry, or because what you were doing was dead anyway. So if you're going to do mortgages, it would have been a totally different business.
I honestly felt like I was going to have to reinvent myself no matter what I did. And when I started thinking about different careers and stuff, I was like, what kind of has stability and longevity? And I had some problems with that because I honestly, at that point in time, I think I was so beaten down that I didn't really have what it takes to kind of build again. Right? Like, I mean, insurance, it's not an overnight success. You got to do it. You got to build your book. You got to start from zero. You got to start from all the way down here. And to get up here, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of determination, a lot of work. And I could have did it in the mortgage industry, and I probably should have in hindsight because fast forward 5 or 6 years, that's what I did anyway. And I'm happy I did it. I'm happy I did all of that stuff. It rounds you. It humbles you. It gives you some different things for your future successes.
Yeah, but I also feel like at that time, had you stayed in the mortgage business, again,
Mhm,
even though it was a different type or different
mhm.
silo of the business, I feel like there was a taste of like, I don't want to say fear, but the people that I've spoken to who were in it at that time were like, if I hear the word mortgage again, I don't care if it's wholesale, subprime, jumbo, I don't know
Yeah.
what it is. I can't. Like it was a traumatic experience because, as you said, I think it's very easy, and obviously, I'm in a business like that. Also, obviously, hopefully not as extreme, but we have cycles. And
Mhm,
my father, who should rest in peace, was one of those old school people who said there's cycles and things come up, and there's a hard
mhm.
market and a soft market. And it's easy for the old guys to say it, but when you're in it, even if you know it has to shrink, as you said. It's just never going to disappear. So then when it does, I feel like some of your success now was able to happen because you took that huge pivot.
Absolutely,
Like,
absolutely.
hey, I'm just going to
I'll
start
tell
over,
you.
zero.
I'll tell you what the real. I think the real reason why I got out of the mortgage business was it wasn't necessarily the bad taste. It was I was realistic. I understand anything could happen, right? I get that part of it. Was I pissed off about it? Of course I was, but I could have stayed in. I think the problem was I was like, this is what I used to do to make a dollar, and now I have to do this much more to make a dollar. I was like, screw this. I'm going to do something else. And look, you see this stuff all the time when we had reform. I mean, insurance had reform. Everything has reform, right? And it seems like somebody gets, they start salivating for an industry or a specific position or something or whatever, some sector. They go after it, and then you kind of have to accept the new changes, right? So we had like compensation changes years ago. I mean, mortgage people used to make 4 points a deal, 5 points a deal, and you get back into the business. It's like, what do you mean I can only make a point? What type of bullshit is this?
You're like, oh,
And
that's why it went under. I got it. It was the yacht. I got it.
it was the yacht. That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
The
But listen, it happened. It happens with insurance, right? You guys have regulated premiums on some stuff. Title insurance. I mean, look. I don't want to get into this whole big thing right now, but I think that's what this whole real estate settlement is. I think eventually what's going to happen is real estate transactions are going to take place, kind of like they always did, but overall there's going to be less commissions paid out.
Do you wish you would have done things differently in 2006 to 2010?
Absolutely, absolutely. I wish I did. I love the experiences that I had during that time. Some good, some bad. Met some good people, met some shitty people, like always. But um, I would have liked to have restarted my mortgage career in the retail side of things back then, because it would just be that much more time that I've had, that many more relationships. Things could have been that much stronger. Um, but man, I don't know. Maybe that was the path that I was chosen to go on.
And you've rebuilt it. What is it? What is it that keeps you motivated in that space? How do you build those relationships? How do you build that book? I mean, your success is easy for anyone to find. So, and you
Yeah.
build something, and you're still building that team and growing that book of business. But like insurance agents, retail mortgage advisors are it's a popular sales position,
Mhm.
and it's hard to differentiate yourself. So, what keeps you going in that? In that
So
reinventing yourself,
some
in
of it
that
is I
evolving.
never ever want to have the feeling of being broke ever again, right? I never want to. I don't want to look for another job. I'm 47 years old. Like I'm good, man. Um, it's too late for me to play a professional sport, So I'm not
Oh,
gonna be
that's what it is. That I got it. Okay, you were right there, but it was when you hit
That's right. I was just
45, it was like
just talking
LeBron.
about the Yankees,
LeBron can do
man.
it at 42. You were right there. You can't do it anymore.
No, but I mean, I like what I do. I do like what I do. I think it's super important. I think it's one of the biggest financial things in most people's lifetimes. One of the biggest financial decisions, right? So I'm happy that I'm there to guide and help, and it's lucrative, and I like what I do. Um, so it's definitely that I'd never want to be at the bottom again. So that keeps me motivated. And then it's family. It's my family. I got little kids.
How many kids do you have?
They're expensive too.
Oh, I have 5. They're very expensive.
Jesus, you got a lot more bills than I do.
That's it.
No, but I mean, damn, man, I talk to people now whose kids are going to college, and I'm like, it's how much?
Right.
You know,
Right.
and even high school,
Yeah, it's
it's how
crazy.
much for some
Summer
of these
camp.
private
Yeah.
schools. So,
Yeah. But
I live in New York also, so it's not cheap.
yeah, whatever. We're not going to comment on that. I don't usually ask about this on the podcast because we usually stay on hustle. But I got to ask because you're such an expert in the field.
Mhm.
What's going to happen with mortgages? Not
What's gonna happen with
politics.
mortgages?
Yeah. What's going to happen?
Interest rates?
Yeah. And the average American. I mean, people tell me all the time that, and I guess this relates to hustle a little bit, that it used to be that there was a plan. You went to
Mhm.
college or you got a job. After X number of years, you had enough saved. Interest
Bought a
rates
house.
were fair enough. You could buy
Mhm.
a house in your local neighborhood again, depending upon your income, where you ended up.
Yeah.
What do we do?
I think the American dream to own a home is dead. I think it's really now just everybody has to accept that we live a life of managing debt, whatever that is, right? Whatever you choose to spend. Um, I think there are going to be people who are not going to be able to buy homes. It's going to be that simple. There are things that have happened, not too long ago. I mean, if you look at the tech boom in Silicon Valley, people moved out there and it made property basically untouchable. Right? You go to San Fran; it's one of the most expensive real estates in the country. I think that's going to happen. I think it's going to go. It's just going to keep happening in more and more areas where it's just unattainable. Where are people going to go? I don't know, man. They're not building anymore around here because there's no land. I think interest rates will eventually come down a bit, but here's the crazy thing: they don't have to. We
So
want them to.
2.75 is never happening again.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
So does
Your
that mean
2.75 mortgage or 3% mortgage is probably your most valuable asset you're going to have in your entire life.
Yeah, if only I still had it. The again, has nothing to do with the podcast, but I think that our listeners would love to hear this. So does that mean that you think and what you see with your client base is that, or maybe this does have to do with hustle, is that the average American now is it used to be get a mortgage, pay it off. When you retire or when you die, your kids get a debt-free
Mhm.
house. And
Mhm.
in your retirement, you don't have to pay your mortgage anymore. So therefore that takes an expense off of your head when you're no longer making that income.
Mhm.
Do you believe that mortgages now are just like debt vehicles and nobody's actually planning on paying them off? They'll just refi them forever?
Pretty much. Pretty much. Yeah. I think they're just debt you're going to carry for the rest of your life. I mean, some people will be a little bit more, deliberate with paying it and maybe not tapping into it until they have to. Look, there's a million different situations that I can see happening. I can see homes being more generational, where they do this in Europe. You just pass the home down, right? If you can't buy a home and you need a place to live and your family has a home, well, just keep it in the family type
And
thing.
then just pay the debt. And then just,
Just
okay, you
pay the
just
debt. Yeah.
pay grandma
Yeah.
and grandpa their mortgage every month so they don't have to run out
Yeah.
of whatever, but you probably want to keep it because it's probably at a lower rate.
I mean, remember the property. It's funny. I had this conversation with a couple friends the other night. This is all about supply and demand. That's all this is. Forget about values, interest rates, whatever. It's supply and demand. In 2008, the crash happened because there was oversupply and less demand. It's the complete opposite right now. Lower supply and higher demand. So
therefore they don't need to correct the interest rates because there's plenty of demand to offset
It's it.
during a
Yeah,
high interest environment.
They say some people aren't buying homes. Yes, some people, but every home that's going on the market's selling. So why does somebody really have to change their business model and make less money, right? Oh, well, let's just lower interest rates. Just because, Frank would like them to be lower so he can make more money,
Right.
and Aaron can refinance his house. Like, let's
Exactly.
just lower 'em. I something has to happen overall because of how expensive it is to live.
But that may not be housing. That may not be
That's
interest rates. That may be food
correct.
costs.
Correct. That's the bigger concern. The bigger concern is how much does it cost, your average American to live.
I like that. All right, let's get back to hustle.
Hard.
Sorry, we digress, but this is
I
important
know.
to me because I'm just thinking about this stuff and I'm thinking about the challenges that we all have. What is the most important skill you think you've developed through that major downswing and now back on the upswing?
Most important skill.
I've never asked that question before, but I feel like you're the right person to ask it
An
to.
easy one to answer. I'm not gonna lie. I think it's kind of just my approach now with clients and just business in general is like I don't get excited. What I mean by excited is I don't overreact. I don't. It's just it's all gonna be, man. It's all gonna work out. Like even Steven, like this doesn't work, but that'll work.
And it probably
So
helps you not, like you were saying, one of the things you wish you did differently was not spend all the money. But if you don't get
yeah,
excited about this deal because you know that, you have to think about the global view, that's probably helps your overall approach and your overall
it
mental
made
and
my overall approach when I got back into business. I made a commitment to myself, and I said I'm never gonna make it about the money. It's about the money. Let me give you that secret, right? It's about the money, but
if not, we'd be playing golf.
yeah, you just train your mind to think a little differently, and like you don't look at a deal as a dollar sign. You just look at it as getting it done, moving on to the next one, making people happy, giving people a good experience. Go on to the next one. Go on to the next one. Do the right thing, right? Don't try to be a little, don't try to cut corners or maybe be a little too salesy because you're trying to chase that paycheck. So I think if you have that mindset, the money comes anyway. It's all part of it. It's just the way you look at it. I mean, I've lost a ton of money on deals, and I just have to close them because it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do for business, the right thing to do for the client, right? If we screw up or if we maybe promise something that we can't deliver, you got to eat it. And we do it. I try not to do it often, but it's just that mindset, and when you're not making money and you're at the bottom, you know, everything is so, so, so important. You can't let something go. And so I would say that's kind of one of the biggest takeaways from being so down at that point in time is just don't worry about the money. Like it will come. Just do the right thing. Stay calm. Don't overreact. I overreact with other stuff, but not with mortgages.
like the Yankees, whatever.
Oh,
The
don't. You had to go there.
yeah, but I think that but maybe that's the answer. Maybe that's the skill. The skill is realizing that if you don't make the highs super high,
Mhm.
what do they say? The higher you are, the greater the fall.
Yeah.
So
Further up the
if you don't overreact to the positive, that may help if and when, God forbid, there's another downturn for whatever reason.
Mhm.
It can be the industry, it could be personally, it could be anything.
Yeah.
I guess maybe that's the greatest skill is realizing that if you stay, obviously, a big sale's great, and you may say, okay, I'm going to get a nice bottle of wine the next time I go out to dinner, right? But that's not a $50,000 vacation, right? There's that stuff in there. It's not a new car. So I guess keeping all that even with the ups kind of maybe helps the waves and helps you ride the waves, which is what Keep Hustling's about, right? It's about
Sure.
saying that one further step. There's the next step. There's the next step of growth. There's the next opportunity for growth. There's the next opportunity to just hustle a little more. And each time you hustle, I've said it many times on the podcast, there's this image that I keep going back to of the guy who's pushing the rock up the hill. And when they zoom out of the image, you see that he's almost at the top, but he doesn't know where he is because he can't see over the rock. Yeah. And he gives up like just before the top. And like, if that's the message, if the message is just a little bit more, maybe it'll be slower to the top.
Yeah.
But the ability to get there, because even if there's a setback, you'll keep going. Is there any greater lesson than that?
That's a pretty good one. I've seen that before. I've seen that drawing.
Yeah. So I mean, I can't imagine being in the position that you were in when things went south, and the fact that you came back to it, different part of the business, but the fact that you came back to it and knowing that regardless of which part of the mortgage industry, it's volatile. And since it's volatile, volatility means it's volatile. That's it. It means it could happen again. Sure. That doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it means it could happen again. So coming back to that, I think it's just incredibly inspirational, and that's a hustle that we can all learn from. So we end every podcast by asking our guests, or every episode by asking our guests to leave us with their favorite motivational or inspirational quote. And it can't have to do with an elevator with you, so we're not going to allow that. But Frank, I really appreciate you again for taking the time, escaping the elevator, and I'll leave the the floor to you now to leave us with that and your message and what it means to your hustle.
Sure. So, I don't really have a specific quote, but what I am going to tell you is I saw something. It was like on social. It's like Dad's Inspirational or something like that. It was talking. This guy was talking. It was like, what do you do? It was actually Joe Rogan was the one who was pointing it out, and he said, "What do you do when you're tired?" And he thinks about this guy who's speaking, and it's motivational, and he's saying, if you failed, like, good, right? If you didn't get something, good. So every time like you're tired or you're not doing something or you don't succeed, it's like good. And the guy's broadcasting this whole like minute and a half rant, and everything that you don't accomplish, it's like good. Everything you failed at is good, and the reason why it's good is because now you're going to go get better, right? It wasn't your time, you're going to go get better. And I like that. So it's like, I was thinking today, I'm like, you think about knowing I was coming on here and talking about hustling, and you know when you don't do something, you don't get something, you don't accomplish something, it's not really a negative, man. It's, you know, good that it didn't happen. Now go get it,
That is keep hustling.
Yeah.
That if as long as you keep going and keep hustling, it's okay because you're never going to get everything. By the way,
Sure.
isn't that what it's about? That people, if the first time someone misses something that they think they should get, they give up.
Mhm.
That's going to happen. Michael Jordan didn't get what he wanted at first. Jeff
Most people-
Bezos didn't get what he wanted. Elon Musk, you go to everybody you think is successful in whatever way, they didn't get something. So had they given up, they wouldn't have been who they were. So I love that.
There was a good one with Kobe Bryant. I'm gonna find it for you, but it was the same thing. He like missed a game winning shot or something, and he was like, "Yeah, no, I'm okay with it because now I know what I have to fix." That was pretty
100%.
cool.
And I still want the ball the next time. That's the important part. Is give me the ball again tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Frank, really thank you for being here.
Hey, man, thank you so much for the invite. I appreciate it. As always, good to see you. Good to talk to you.
It's great
Keep
to see you. That's it. This has been another episode of Keep Hustling. And remember, do well by doing good and always keep hustling. All right, hustlers, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. If you have any suggestions, comments, or even just want to say hello, please feel free to reach out to us on all social media platforms. We are Keep Hustling Pod. Until next time, stay curious, stay hungry, and keep hustling.